Today's episode is sponsored by Permanent Hearing Damage, which is a recording studio based in Philadelphia, owned and operated by Steve Roche from Seisha, Off Minor, Boer War, which you're hearing now, and many others. They've spent the last 25 years specializing in recording, mixing, mastering for punk, hardcore, metal, and related genres at artist-friendly prices. Some recent clients include Piers, Foxtails, Masanera, Closer, Rambo, Stinking Lizaveta, Sanagi, and Witching. Contact Permanent Hearing Damage via their website, permanenthearingdamage.com. Hello, and welcome to Everything Remade, a podcast that I hope is about growth as much as it is about music. I'm Edie Quinn, and we have a great show lined up for you today. Before we get started, though, I'd like to remind you about our Patreon page at patreon.com/humanmachine, where you can go to sign up and support the show, read zines, get music sneak peeks, and so much more. That's patreon.com/humanmachine. And now, I'd like to play something for you. You're hearing Instincts by Or Does It Explode, featuring my pal Shawn on guitar and vocals. The song comes from their new album, Realities Disguised as Symbols, which you can find on Bandcamp now.
In the city, I am as unseen.
When I was like 5 or 6, my mom dated a musician, and so there started just being a lot of musicians around our house, and a lot of instruments around our house, and so at a very young age I already like got to see musicians like listening to other people's songs and trying to understand what those musicians were doing and dissect those things and then like work them or rework them into their own versions. And so I sort of got to see that, like, that human aspect to it at a really early age, which I think, like any teenager or like preteen, like I certainly idolized some musicians, but I think I always had a sense of like, this is also just a person and not an idol or a god, right? And having grown up in the time that I grew up, which is like, you know, late 80s, early 90s. That was very much like the punk bands and the grunge bands I listened to were like very much like, I'm not anything. I'm just a person that plays an instrument. So I think I got to luckily sidestep a little bit of that.
Yeah. When you're talking about like, people were trying to like, you saw sort of the behind the scenes of people like examining and like getting to like you know I don't know, like you saw backstage a little bit right away where it was like,
yeah,
it was not just like someone playing something, but you saw like the tinkering and stuff like that. And like what kind of songs were, like what kind of musicians was this? Like what songs were they? Was it like, you know, we're talking about like 80s or whatever. Are they like trying to learn like Cinderella songs? Or is it like Bon Jovi? What kind of songs?
No, they were. So what's funny is like, I think my first musical love was, I think, Cyndi Lauper and then Michael Jackson, but then it was Def Leppard. And that's sort of what got me into the heavier music era, if you can call left root heavy music. But they, like the musicians I was seeing, they were all like very into country, and they were into like
Okay.
what I know now is like outlaw country. So, you know, listening to the old um, Willie Nelson, why am I Johnny Cash, Hank Williams, and so like one of the memories I have is of them like listening to, I think it was a Hank Williams song, and like trying to figure out exactly what the drummer was doing in the background and like what his beat was and what he was hitting.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's a totally different like world from like some other things that like if you're like, oh, they were trying to figure out like this bit from The Cure or something, which is like not just the guitar shapes and things like that, but also like, oh, what kinds of pedals are they using or whatever, it's like your
Right.
experience could have been drastically different based on whether it was this or it was that, or even like, oh no, they were trying to learn Duran Duran songs, It's
Right.
like
Absolutely.
then like all of a sudden you have this like huge like sort of like funky bass, bass line going and things like that. So yeah, that's really interesting. And like, you know, it's we like, we always like start somewhere and then we find our own thing, and we go from there. And sometimes I hear people's stories and I can see more of a through line from like, oh, this is the kind of first kind of thing that I was exposed to like what you're doing now or whatever. But like, you know, you seem really influenced by stuff like karate and boys life and just stuff that was more like early 90s, that era. But
Sure.
sometimes
Yeah.
you can hear that other stuff come through, and I don't necessarily in your case. But is that like, did you like start playing guitar like when like, okay, there's guitars laying around and you just like start picking them up and experimenting, or was that later?
So it was probably a little bit later. So like, you know, thinking back to that time that I was talking about, the like 5, 6 year old time, like uh it was my mom's boyfriend, but he wasn't a particularly nice person.
Oh,
And
okay.
so like I did not want to play guitar because he was a guitarist, right? Like I was learning a lot and I was really enamored by what he and his friends were doing, and a lot of his friends, like I really looked up to them as adults who were nice to me as a child
Hmm.
when he maybe wasn't. So like at first I was like, I want to play keyboard, and then I was like, no, I want to be a drummer. I absolutely want to be a drummer. But somewhere around, you know, like 11 or 12, and they were no longer together, and the only remnant of him in our life was the acoustic guitar that got left behind. It was the instrument to pick up because we were poor, and that was the instrument that was in our house, and so we couldn't afford a drum set. And so I picked up the guitar because it was there. And again, you know, it was the late 80s, early 90s. So like guitar was everything and everywhere. And yeah, it just made a lot of sense because it was there. And then I found that I really, really loved that instrument. And I still have that really crappy acoustic hanging on the wall.
Oh yeah. What kind
Yeah.
is it?
Oh, it's like some nondescript. There's not even any name on it.
Oh,
Like
okay.
I have this memory of them buying it for like $100 at a store in the mall. It is a super cheap guitar.
Yeah. I mean, it's it's wild. There, I mean, when I was a kid, growing up, there was my dad was always like playing guitar and stuff, and he was always like, "You'll get this guitar that he owned." He was like, "You'll get that when you're 16,"
Oh,
and
sure.
and but I didn't want to wait, so we were always like scoping out these guitars that they had at like J.C. Penney and stuff, and I'd bring it
Uh-huh.
up or something, and my dad's like, "You don't want those pieces of shit," and it's like it's so true. Like when I think about it now, is because the guitar that he was going to give me was like a fucking genuine like real deal Les Paul, like Sunburst, whatever from like
Nice.
1970, whatever. And I mean, our house got robbed and it got stolen before I ever got
Oh
it.
man.
So
Uh,
that never happened. And I ended up just like buying a BC Rich from some guy I worked with later, when my
sure.
parents weren't even together anymore. But like, yeah, it's why it's cause I mean, okay, like you can go to like Walmart now and buy like a guitar, or you could at least a few years ago. But like it's wild that this was a thing that was like something you could do in like the 80s and whatnot. And then like forever it was just like guitars were, you know, they were more like properly made and you could only get them at like, more like legitimate locations, I guess, let's just
Sure.
say. But
Yeah.
now you can just like get a guitar. So same thing with skateboards. Like when I wanted a skateboard when I was like, 9, 10 years old, like you could only buy a skateboard at the skateboard shop and they were like $200 with
Sure.
everything.
Yeah.
And now you can go to Walmart and get a skateboard for $20. It's like,
Sure. Yeah.
um, I don't, I don't know. And I think the guitars they sell at Walmart are those first acts. And
Oh, sure.
one time I played in this band called Plague Walker, and our guitar player like showed up to practice at my house with a first act guitar, and I was like, "What is that? What is going on?" And apparently, that company like they have like a couple models that are actually like really good guitars. They're like Les Paul
Really?
clones, yeah.
Oh,
And it was the
interesting.
first I ever heard of it too. He's like, "No, they don't sell these at the Walmart, of course, but like, yeah, I don't know. It's really weird." And then
That's interesting.
yeah, just every once in a while you see like if you like if you have some friends who are into like weird guitar tastes and stuff, you see like some guitar and you're like, "What the hell is that?" And they're like, "They made these for Sears or whatever." You know what I
Sure.
mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I think that there was an amp head that Sears had, and in the early 2010s and whatnot, I used to see people were looking for these things. They were like similar to one of the models that Acoustic makes, but like there was something about them that like people were seeking them out. I think like the one of the guitar players for Sunny Day Real Estate used one at some point, and it was just like this thing. It was like, can you believe these were made for Sears? They're great guitar amps, but you can never find them.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. It's weird, weird. So you just like start playing this acoustic guitar, and like by then you sort of have like your own music tastes and stuff. Like what are you trying to learn on guitar like right away when you just first pick this up, or are you just like full in experimenting, like these make cool noises things?
No, I mean, for sure. Like when I first picked up the instrument, it was like, can I learn other people's songs? And it would have been, probably 1990, 1991. So for sure, there would have been the mandatory Metallica riff here or there that I was definitely into metal at that point in time. So if I could have learned things from Megadeth or Anthrax or Slayer or Metallica, that would have been what I was trying to learn then. Pretty shortly after getting the guitar, though, sort of the whole world changed, right? Like that's when Nirvana and grunge and all that came out, and like I immediately globbed onto that as far more interesting to me than the metal, and then that quickly turned me down the road of like listening to old 80s like hardcore punk bands. And so then it was very much about learning those things, but also learning the punk ethos of like doing it yourself and making your own music. And so like very quickly I was like, well, I'm just going to try and write my own stuff also. Like that seemed easier than learning other people's stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it was a pretty quick move, but I'm pretty sure that Inner Sandman was probably the first like thing that wasn't Smoke on the Water or Iron Man that I learned on the guitar.
Yeah. Iron Man is the first thing that, like, I was talking about the guy who sold me the guitar. He said he was going to teach me some stuff. Well,
Sure.
what he actually did was he brought the guitar and the little combo amp over, and he showed me the opening riff to Iron Man. Then he was like, "All right, thanks, bye."
Uh, there you go.
I was like,
Perfect. Yeah.
"Cool." And I I worked with the guy, and I just kind of never brought it up again. I was like, "Fine, I'll figure it out," you know. But
Yeah.
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 So you mentioned Metallica and Megadeth, and I immediately the other day we were having this conversation, so I'll just ask, um, all personalities aside, who do you have better discography, Metallica or Megadeth?
Ooh, yeah. I still Metallica. Well, Metallica has the best discography up until 1991 for sure.
Okay,
Um,
yeah,
like it
but
just is. Like
you can't just end it there, like pound for pound. What?
I know that's
Yeah.
what's hard about it, right? Like the discography after that's so bad that like doesn't negate the great things they did
No,
before.
it doesn't. It doesn't. But it's like
Yeah,
if you're just like if you're like, all right, this is a 10, but this is a 5, and then you're just doing like averages. I don't know.
right.
I've always just like, I mean, Dave Mustaine is such a, he's a tool, but like
He's a tool.
pound for pound, Megadeth over Metallica every day for me, and it's like, yes, Metallica's like great albums are, they're better than anything that Megadeth ever did, but like just over like the consistency of Megadeth's albums versus Metallica, like what are y'all doing? Like I don't know. And I think like
That's probably fair.
yeah.
Although I would have to admit that like I don't really know Megadeth's catalog after Countdown to Extinction. So like
Yeah,
I and you can't not know Metallica's because it's been so bad, but it's also been
yeah,
so out there.
it's a train wreck, right? You have to sort of check it out
Yeah,
and be like, "Whoa." But I mean, I'll say that it's like Countdown to Extinction and then therefore after for Megadeth. I mean, it's reruns. You know what I mean? But they're
right.
all like they've always got like a great rhythm section, and they've like and it's reruns, but there's nothing wrong with it. It's always like consistent,
Sure.
you know.
Sure.
And whereas Metallica, you're like I really when Robert Trujillo got in the band, and I was a huge Suicidal Tendencies fan growing up. I was
Yeah.
like, this
Yeah.
is gonna be it. This is gonna be the shit. Like we're back, baby. And it
Right.
was not
Right.
back,
It was bad.
um,
Yeah.
but I mean, but good for you for getting your bag and everything, Robert. You deserve it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
anyway, the lean toward grunge, like I was sort of waiting for that to come up because like you know you um you have like in the credits for Tales to Needless Outcomes, you mentioned that that was recorded at Pachyderm Studios, which is like, you mentioned that In Utero was recorded there, Rid of Me was recorded there, but also you mentioned like Soul Asylum and Live, and that's kind of like a couple names you don't necessarily, even though Live was like a huge band, like you just don't see those names thrown around that much anymore.
Sure. Sure.
Even though like, I mean the guitar tone on Throwing Copper is maybe the greatest guitar tone I've ever heard. Like that guitar tone is ridiculous. It's like
It's great.
so it's so crunchy, but like it loses nothing
Yeah.
anywhere. Like it's I'm just like every time
So
I don't know. Every time I
so
think about it, I'm
any
just
like
like, yeah.
yeah. So I was a huge live fan for the first two albums, the Mental Jewelry,
Yeah,
which was like
Mental
their
Joy is great.
acousticy album,
Yeah.
and then Throwing Copper. Do you know who Patrick Finnerty is? Or Finnerty?
Is
He's
that I guess not by name, no.
he's the YouTuber that makes those uh this is why this song sucks videos,
Oh, okay.
and they're pretty hilarious. But he forever destroyed Live for me when he said, because he's a similar age as me, and he was like, I was a big Live fan, until I realized that they actually had a lot more in common with Matchbox 20 than Nirvana. And I cannot unhear that
Hmm.
now. Like, especially anything past Throwing Copper. But yeah, I loved that album. And literally on like 2 weeks ago, somebody said that I reminded them of Live, and I think it's like just because I have a bald head and that guy has a bald head.
um, yeah, it's I have a I don't know if I know that person specifically, and I'm not sure if I've ever seen that channel. But when I got pneumonia a couple years ago and sort of went into this like health spiral, I was watching a lot of YouTube documentaries and things like that, and I watched one on Julia Hatfield where someone was like, she has the worst lyrics, and I love Julia Hatfield so much, and
I
and
love
th-
Julian.
and then I was just like, after that I was like, nah, she really does have like the worst lyrics, but like beside the point, I don't care anyway.
She does, except for the album that she wrote about Trump, which is like
Oh, I
those lyrics.
that
Those
has to
lyrics
be
hurt.
pretty recent. So, or I mean, not necessarily recent, but like way more past. Like that's not like Blake Babies. That's not like her first few, and that's like my golden era there.
Yeah,
Which,
yeah, for sure.
I mean, I was
Only
stoked to see she was
Everything.
still making music for sure. But like, yeah,
Yeah, well, go check out the one that she made. I think it's called Pussycat, but don't hold me to that. It was like she put it out shortly after Trump was elected the first time, and it
okay,
is scathing. And those are good lyrics. But
okay.
yeah, become
I
what you are,
one
only everything. Those aren't tight lyrics. Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
the only more recent thing that I did go through a little bit was like she released maybe even more than one like thing of like covers, and I wasn't that fond of that many of
Okay.
them, but it was definitely like interesting. Like she didn't try to just like cover the songs like like faithfully, which was
Sure.
like which it was interesting. I was just like, yeah, this isn't some of this isn't for me.
Give me a reason, I have a question. Asking why, I'm asking why. Serena told me, Mickey overheard, Johnny pronounced a sacred word. Your mother told you, you were 5 days old, there are spiders in the grass. Stay on the road. Read the instructions, pick up your pen. Read careful this time, have you done it again? A smart mouth. A familiar face, a bad hand, a three of spades. You know how it is, friend. Everything has to end. But we have time yet, so until then.
There was two reasons why I brought up the YouTube documentaries, and the other one was that I did watch one on live, and it was bonkers. Like there was so much drama in that band. It was just
Seems like it.
bonkers, and like
Yeah.
like like the so like Ed Kowalski, or I'm not sure if that's exactly his name, but it's something like that. The vocalist, that was
Yeah.
pretty much his thing. He wrote all the songs, he wrote all the lyrics, etc. But the
Yeah.
guitar player, like he would add his own stuff to it and stuff. But like he was like the business manager, and he was not good at it. He stole money. He invested the band's money. He like basically bankrupt them like a billion times over and stuff. It's so much. It's so much drama. I was just like, and then like they kept doing these reunions, and like, and every time like Ed is basically like, why don't I ever learn? It's just like one of those things. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, and didn't they like at some point start touring without Ed?
Oh, that sounds likely, because it was the guitar player that was always like Ed was more or less like, nah, I'm cool just making my own music. I was writing all these songs anyway, and then like the guitar player would need money, so it'd be like,
Sure.
please, can we just, and eventually Ed would be like, I'm just not doing this anymore, but I don't know. That's one thing that, you can say about like the proliferation of like sites like YouTube and stuff is where like there is no shortage of like if something was big enough, you'll find like a 30-minute like documentary by someone that's just
For
like
sure.
really done the the background on this stuff. And I don't know,
Yeah.
I watched Natalie Merchant and all this stuff, just like
But
I say, I grew up like with the same kind of stuff as you, so that's like, yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
So once you get there and you're more or less trying to write your own songs, like how long until you're like trying to play with other people? And like, was this like high school age or before, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think I started my first band. I think I picked the instrument up at like 12 realistically, and by 15 like I was already starting my own band. And we recorded ourselves an album that's pretty horrific, but was we were trying something. But at like 17, so yeah, so it was pretty quick.
Okay,
It just made sense.
okay, let's let's hold on there for a second. So recorded yourselves. What did this
Yeah.
look like at that time?
Um, I had a friend that had a 4-track recorder, and he
Okay.
gave me like a 30-minute tutorial on it. And somebody had given us like one Shure mic. It wasn't even an SM58, it was something else, but they gave us a mic and one biodynamic ribbon microphone. I don't know how we got that, but so we just started like, yeah, sticking the two mics that we had on the drum set, sticking them on the guitar amps, and recording and bouncing things down so we could add to a track, so we could add extra tracks, and mixing as we went along. Um,
Was this the Fostex that you see everywhere when someone says 4-track? Or was it something different?
yes.
Yeah.
No, the first one I ever used was a Fostex, and then eventually I got a Yamaha,
Oh, okay. Still a 4-track
which
though?
was surprisingly nicer than the. Yeah, it was still a 4-track, but surprisingly nicer than the Fostex.
Yeah. In like sound or just like in functionality or?
Functionality, like
Okay.
the ability to do things. I think the Fostex I had maybe didn't have panning features, but the Yamaha did.
Oh,
So
okay. I I still have some Fostex and I'm always like I should do a recording on one of these one day. And then I'm just like when I'm like I'm about to do a recording, I'm like, okay, I got like one day to do each one of these things. Like I don't have like half that time to like relearn how to, like I'm like,
for
nah,
sure,
like it'll
yeah,
have to be like a real thing that I like sit down and like, how the fuck does this work again? Like I haven't used it
right,
since 1999, like,
yeah.
um, so
Where you got to like make the lo-fi concept album and take it all back to the 4-track.
I mean, yeah, the last time I used it, it was it was I mean it was a screamo band, but we played acoustic guitars through amplifiers, so they didn't even sound like acoustic guitars anymore. But except they did have a, I mean they kind of sounded acoustic. They did have like lots of weird. There was like happy accidents, right? Because you're amplifying acoustic guitars, and so you get these weird sounds and stuff that were
Yeah,
like they're unique to that project, But we we recorded this demo live, so we just like you were saying, you can only plug. It's a 4-track, but you can only plug a couple things in at a time, and then you have to like move things around. And
right.
so we had like positioned the guitar amps a certain way in front of the drums, and we had put the microphones in a specific spot, and we kept trial and error, and then we actually recorded the vocals like while we did this as well. We just figured out, okay, approximately how close do I need to be to the microphone to where you can hear the vocals, but the vocals aren't like hitting the microphone in a way where it messes other things up. And so we literally were just like hunched over, like screaming, recording our guitars at the same time while the drummer was like over there. And like that album is like on my Bandcamp. Like it's
That's
in
awesome.
my opinion, it's worth listening to. And that's,
Yeah.
it's so weird that like that's how we recorded it. Like, I think when you
Yeah.
hear it and you know that, you're like, oh yeah, I can see how it's like, it's not a trick of like the vocals legitimately are moving further away from the mic. It's not, none of this is
Sure.
like tricks, like,
Right.
and stuff. But I don't know. It was fun. It was interesting. I'd do it again if I remembered how to do any of this damn stuff, like, once you get to doing something a certain way, you're like, okay, that's good. But,
Right. Right.
yeah. So, I mean, like, how long were you sort of playing in bands and sort of like recording yourself and stuff before you were taking it to like sort of a, like, no, this is like we should go somewhere, like, and we should be on tour, like we should make CDs, like, were you?
Yeah, I mean, I think going through high school, we were a high school band, and I grew up in just a small town, like 75 miles from Madison. So like, there was really like you were gonna play the VFW or the one bar in town that like had an all ages night.
Mhm.
That was it, right? You weren't gonna get shows out of town. That wasn't gonna happen at that point.
Mhm.
But pretty shortly after graduating, I moved up to Madison and was like, we're gonna play shows here. We're gonna play in the region, and just really took that on. And yeah, so I mean, pretty quickly after turning 18, it was like, let's get a band going in the city and go play as many places around here as we can. And we never got huge. Like, I never toured nationally, but we were consistent regionally from Madison, Wisconsin, or I mean Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan, that sort of area.
Mhm.
It was pretty quickly by the time I was 18, 19.
Did you were you like making your own, like, I don't know exactly like what, this is like real close for when CDs and stuff were a thing. So were you like making your own
Yeah.
CDs or tapes or whatever to take and sell at these shows? Were you like DIYing like your own merch and stuff like that as well, or just like you?
Yeah, so there was in Madison at that time. It's gone now, but at that time there was a college here where you could go for like radio broadcasting or music recording and or production, and basically every musician in Madison ended up going to that college. So I went to that college when I was probably, I think, like 20. I think I was like 20. So I learned how to record, and so we recorded things there, and definitely like pressed those to CD, put it out ourselves. So like that's kind of when I learned the DIY ethic, but with like I had the background from the schooling and that, and then paid that off for the next 15 years. So yeah, so I think we started recording pretty quickly ourselves. Then we had access to that school because I went there, so we were able to use a legitimate studio to record in, and so did that for a number of years. But at home, I hadn't amassed any better equipment than the 4-track, so I was still using the 4-tracks. And then as time passed and bands changed, I ended up being in bands with others who had also gone or gotten kind of an education in recording, and so I let them do it, and they had better equipment. But when we came around to Or Does It Explode, at that point, like, I invested in some recording gear, and so the first few things that we put out, I did record and mix and master. And
Yeah, I thought so. And I mean, they're all like super consistent, and like, I mean, anytime like it's like, oh yeah, this we recorded these themselves, and they're like that consistent. Like that's, I don't know, you can tell somebody like has some kind of background or like at least a lot of experience, because it's like,
Sure.
especially when you're like just figuring this stuff out, it's like I feel like for me, and I've been like at this a long time. Like I'm always trying weird stuff, and so I've still none of my stuff is consistent. It's just like I want one thing to sound like something, and I don't know how to do it, but I give it my best. And so it's like sometimes I'm like I listen to something and I go, oh, I really kind of hit like what I was trying to do there. And sometimes I'm like, I didn't necessarily hit it, and I don't
Sure.
know that other people are listening and going, well, she was trying for this and that didn't happen. Like I don't know if
Yeah.
any, or if it matters. Like I think most people probably just hear it and they either go cool or they go not for me, or sucks or this is shit. But
Yeah.
just without
I,
like any of the thought behind it. But,
yeah. I feel like with a lot of things music related, what I've come to recognize is that people will place on it, I think, whatever their perspective is, right? Like, so they're obviously not going to know what your intent was, and they're not going to know your background or your history or your context, and so they're just gonna like, oh, I hear that, and it reminds me of this other thing that I have a connection to,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's I don't know if other people get there, or if if everyone just always sort of has their own preferences or whatever. But I've really like as I've like gotten older and gotten into more, I generally do stay in the like theater of punk, as it were, like
Uh-huh.
whether that's screamo or indie, more indie stuff, or you know, um, grindcore, or just in this general area. Um, like I've really like gotten away from like I don't hear something and think this isn't recorded well, or even if I like even if I personally like used to be like, oh, I wish this was recorded better or whatever. Like none of that matters to me anymore. Like it's just like
Sure.
the thing is what the thing is. And it's almost like, my pet peeve is when stuff just sounds like it's just off the factory floor, because like you
Yeah.
you can't like a good engineer, and I'm not one, but a good engineer, like you can literally just show them your favorite album and be like, make our album sound like that, and they can do that, like, you know what I
Sure.
mean? So
Yeah.
like
Absolutely. Yeah.
that's my pet peeve, is when you're like, oh, this band really likes Converge, and so that's what this sounds like, a Kurt Ballou production, or whatever.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
like I think, I've listened to bands that Kurt Ballou has recorded that don't sound anything like Converge, and you can tell he recorded it, but they still don't sound anything like Converge. So I don't know why
Yeah.
like that's a thing that like people are like make us sound exactly like this. But I don't know. Anyway, that's getting too far afield there. But yeah, I don't know. It's a lot, like it's really exciting, like learning all this stuff, and like how you can take like your ideas and you can create something that is as close to exactly the way it came out of your guitar, or like as far from it as you
Yeah.
like,
For sure.
you know.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
how much of like how much of your like background and like and you coming up like recording your own stuff, like how much of that informed the way you like write songs, as far as like does do all of your ideas, like do you always like this has to be able to be done like on the floor exactly the way it's going to go into the album, or like do you have a like we're gonna do it for the album and worry about that, and then we'll figure out how to do it live later, or like how's that work for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've still always held to. I would love the album to be a really accurate representation of what we are live. And so, like, writing songs, creating songs, that's always the first step in the process. And the recording of songs generally comes later. And probably to maybe some of my bandmates' chagrin, like, I will sit down and record an idea and it'll be like riddled with flaws, and I'll put the demo up and be like, there's the song idea. Like, I don't spend time meticulously perfecting the demo that I'm presenting to people. I'm like, they understand I just like gaffed and hit the wrong string or went to the wrong fret. They got the idea, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
So and then I think we sort of shift our mindset a little when we go into the studio to, like, I think when you see any band live, there's an energy and a volume level and an intensity that is very hard to capture on records at times.
Yeah.
At least we've struggled, I think, to like get a record uh, to really capture what we sound like live. So we'll think about, like, what other elements can we add to sort of enhance the recording, not to just solely for the benefit of, like, we want to make a smooth production album, because we don't want to do that, but to just give it a little more life to sort of mimic what we do live. If that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I think.
But
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was going to say, but I just, circle back. I think, like, writing is always the first part, and I tend to write ideas pretty quickly, and I love taking a partially contrived idea to the band, and then, like, seeing what they can do to kind of morph it in a way that it wasn't my original vision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that all I was gonna say is, like, the flip side of that, like where we're talking about like the intensity and the volume and stuff, that's hard to capture. The other side to that is something that I'm seeing a lot, and I'm guilty of myself, is like there's no, like, you can't tell when something's supposed to be quieter a lot of the time,
Yeah.
and I don't know. That's why, like, on some of my latest stuff, I was really like trying to be conscious of that, and I hope it came across. But time will tell. Yeah, because, like, I mean, when you see a band and it's just like they're down here and it comes up and it just swells and it just and then, like, when you hear the same song on the recording and it's sort of like all at the same volume level and it's all, and it's so tricky, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I grew up, like, thinking like all the live albums that, like, these punk bands and stuff did were like the best albums they made, and
Sure. Yeah.
and I like, it's wild, like, you were talking about, like, when you finally start to go out of town and stuff, and I was just thinking back then, like, how wild it is sometimes when I'm like, yeah, when I was in high school, my band went and played a show a couple hours away, and, like, we didn't think anything of it at the time, but, like, we were a band that we just really liked Bad Religion a lot. Wanted to sound like Bad Religion. We were teenage kids, and
Nice.
we played with this band called, Asuk, and, like, they're like grindcore legends now, but it was just nothing at the time. They were just another band that was playing this show with, like, us kids, and
Yeah.
and it's like,
Yeah.
we played like the other show we played where it was just like we just were playing this show. We played with this band, and I always forget the band we played with, but they are like known in like pop punk or whatever by themselves, and I just can't remember their name right now. But they went on to be in that band called Digger, which was on
Okay.
yeah, Hopeless Records, and it was their band before that, and it's like it's it's so weird when it's just like you're just like going out there and then like, oh, this band is actually like a big thing, you know? And
Yeah. Yeah.
I was curious, like, did you ever play like when you were going out and like there were some bands in the 90s that my bands would play with in from Madison. There was a band in particular called Insidious. Did you know them or know of
Um,
them?
I feel like they were in the same. I didn't know them.
Oh,
I
okay.
feel like they were in the same camp of bands that there was a couple bands that like ended up doing albums with Profane Existence. And why am I blanking on the one big band from here? They ended up moving out to LA. But the female singer who was like she made it into the one of the decline of Western civilizations documentaries. But
Huh.
I feel like they hung out with them.
So much like this it was cold. You were warm. I got a sick
I've only ever played in Madison once. The town for whatever reason really reminded me of like the campus area here in West Lafayette, but like, um, but it was a really cool show that we played, and there's really no reason that I've never been back other than no one's asked, you know, because like that's especially anymore. That's pretty much me. I don't. I'm just like I don't like to ask. I'll wait until I'm asked, and then.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but
We'll make that happen.
yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, that would be great.
Um,
Yeah, Madison gets missed a lot. I think we're in the shadow of Chicago, Milwaukee, and
Yeah.
Minneapolis, and so it's sort of like, well, maybe our third or fourth time around, we'll think about Madison, but like really, we're gonna hit these other places first.
yeah. Were you playing with like screamo bands and stuff when you were like just you know at that time? Were you playing with like Acarso or 7 Days of Samsara or Since by Man or any of them that were from like Milwaukee and stuff, or it was just
No,
like
we
kind of a
were
different
much
scene.
more. Yeah, I didn't personally discover like screamo scrams until probably like 2003, 4, 5, maybe somewhere in there. And so I missed some of the great stuff that happened prior to that, but there's been plenty of great stuff. But no, I think my bands at that time were much more just like run of the mill punk rock bands. And so
Yeah,
we played with a lot of just run of the mill punk rock bands.
yeah.
Um,
Well, the
to
reason I
your
asked is because
question,
sometimes
oh,
you'd be surprised how much crossover there is, where it's just like,
for sure.
you know, yeah,
I can't confirm this. I've tried to find it online. I even asked the guy that ran the venue, but he can't remember. But I'm pretty sure that I played in Green Bay at what was the Concert Cafe with the band Good Charlotte before anybody knew who Good Charlotte was. So I've tried to figure it out because I'm not a good Charlotte fan, and I wasn't particularly a big fan of this band when I saw them live. But years
yeah.
later, I was like, I feel like that's the band we played with.
That's wild. And my equivalent to that is we played a show in St. Petersburg once, and like we were literally like 17-year-old kids, and this guy was there, and he was like, we're having a party at my house after this show, and you should come. I'll introduce you to some people in some bands that like book shows and stuff. And we were like, yeah, whatever. Like, we weren't gonna go there and party or whatever, but we were like, yeah, whatever. We went there, and this guy introduced us to this guy, and he was like, he's the vocalist for this project. He's trying to start a band. It's gonna be called Marilyn Manson.
Oh my
And
god!
like we met just like the nerd version of that guy, and like of course he's like, years later and stuff, of course it's like, he's a creep and all that, but like
Yeah, right.
but it was wild, like
That is wild.
we just met like the regular plainclothes like version of this guy that would later
Yeah,
be, some like,
Paul or Richard or whatever his name
yeah,
was.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
And
funny.
it's, I don't know, it's one of those things, and it's so like looking back on it now, it's also like I was really like, because I was recently doing like a comic about this, like, and I was just like, this is really like, that scenario was really like, you know like creepy guy, like bringing young, young people
Yeah,
back to a party where people were doing drugs and drinking. And we were just like, we didn't like, we didn't do anything when we were there. And we were just like,
sure.
yeah, okay, cool. And
Yeah,
I don't know what impression we got out of it. I couldn't really remember. It's just kind of like nothing ever happened of it. Like no one exchanged numbers, nothing like that. Like
yeah,
they like they were just kind of like, who are these kids, and we were just kind of like, who are these people,
right.
like,
Why are we here?
yeah, it was just like, we thought like, oh cool, like we're just starting to like, we're 16, 17, we're just starting to go into towns like far, and I don't know what we thought we were going to do with our music. What do you think when you're 16? You think
Yeah,
like
right.
you're going to get signed or something. We didn't think we were going to be rock stars. We thought somebody else was going to take care, and then like it'd be shortly after that where, I met other people, and it was like, no, you always just are going to take care of this stuff. And then
Yeah,
you're like,
right. Yeah,
oh, well, that's like kind of better though, right? Because like, yeah, any instance that you ever thought like you'd meet somebody and other people were going to take care of this stuff, it was just like that. You were disappointed, right? So
yep,
when you
totally.
figure out like, no, you can always just keep doing this, then you're like, oh, that's kind of great,
Absolutely. That was totally our experience. We were like I knew I listened to enough obscure music that I was like, no, there's no mass audience that's gonna like what I'm doing.
Oh,
But
sure,
like,
yeah.
but I was like, yeah, maybe we'll like we'll find that Discord or Touch and Go or that kind of label that'll be like interested in us. And I was like, that's not going to happen. And even if you do, like, you're actually still doing most of the work, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's not like somebody just comes in and takes care of you. Like, you're still doing the work, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, or does it explode? Where does that name come from? Because there's another band called that, and like, so I'm assuming it's like there's a reference.
Yeah. So it's a reference to a Langston Hughes poem called Harlem.
Okay.
It's also the title of a chapter in the Howard Zinn book, The People's History of the United States. And that was where I first saw it. And then in a past life, I was a teacher, and we in social studies like taught about the Harlem Renaissance, and so like that's where it comes from. It's a reference to that poem.
Okay. I feel like that's something I should have known at some point, but
You probably did,
yeah,
but
yeah, a lifetime
you just
ago,
use it
and
on a daily basis. It goes away.
just I don't know. Anymore. It's like I really feel like at some point, like, your brain just kind of decides like it can only hold what it needs to hold, and if you want more stuff to go in there, like less, like more stuff has to sort of like fall by the wayside, and so I'm like, yeah, I've it's like one of those things like Coma Regalia or whatever. Like we go and we play a show and stuff, and it's like, okay, we're gonna switch the set list up, and it's like, I wrote these songs. I feel like it should be easier for me to like just jump back in and like, but I'm like basically relearning the songs, so that it's like I can play, any song I've written. I can play any 20 of them like really well, as long as I'm like playing them. And then once the record is made or whatever, it's like, if you give it like a year, then it's like, oh, right, I gotta, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that's,
100%.
I don't know if
Yeah.
that's kind of like that for everybody, but
Yeah, well, it is for us. Like,
yeah,
we spent a good 3 months like getting really ready to record this album, and once it was recorded, we're like, hey, let's just like go back and play our old catalog because we haven't played some of these songs in 6 months, and it was a train wreck for all of us. Like, what did I play? Like, we had to turn our own music on to like hear it, to be like, what am I doing? Yeah, I feel like that's across the board. Maybe there's some virtuosos out there who can just like pull everything back out of a card catalog, but yeah, those things go away if I'm not doing them for sure.
yeah, it's just, I mean, I don't know. Think I used to feel one kind of way about things like that, but then later, like I'm like, in my whole lifetime, like I'm only gonna ever be able to play for like X amount of people, like in front of people. But like, if I make these songs, like they can exist as long as the internet exists, or as long as these CDs I put them on exist, which that could
Yeah,
be a
for sure.
long fucking time,
Yeah,
that could outlive the internet and everything else, who knows? But
yeah,
like, it'll be the second evolution of man. Somebody's, like, like we all burn to death, in the climate catastrophe, and then we all like formed from whatever thing crawled out of the ocean again, and then somebody finds this plastic thing in the ground which like still hasn't deteriorated.
that's right. That's right. Yeah,
And they figure out like they reverse engineer their like advanced society's like thing to figure out how to play a compact disc, and yeah, I don't know.
well, that's why you got to get it all on vinyl, so it's analog, right? So all they got to do is figure out how to put a needle on a thing, and you're going to hear the music.
Just accidentally, yeah, they accident, yeah. There's like a cool story in there somewhere, that's free to use, anybody listening, where it's some people accidentally figure out how to play vinyl from like some kind of safe in the ground or something. But
I feel like whoever writes that story should call it like 3113 because it's like a different dystopian take on 2112.
yeah, for sure. And it's also like somebody's probably listening right now, like they totally did this in the Fallout games or something, But like
Uh-huh.
anyway, there's no original ideas. It's all how you do it. It's not
That's right.
what you're saying, but um, anyway, like so you all basically get started in 2021. You've had like a ton of output. I know that there's a couple of the things, or at least the one where it was like not necessarily supposed to be like a full band thing. It was supposed to be just like sort of more of a solo album for you. So like, is it just that you're always writing songs and like you're talking about like you make like more or less of a demo and you're like, check this out, let's work on this and things like that? Like, how are you able to just like a 35-40 minute album like so consistently just boom boom boom, here we go?
I don't know. I feel like you could best me on that with the output. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm always writing. I'm always trying to generate new ideas. I think everybody in the band really enjoys creating. Yeah, the one album that was supposed to be my solo thing, that was like when COVID lockdown hit, and we weren't practicing. I just like started writing things at home and was thinking, they were all. It's obviously that album's much softer than a lot of our other stuff, and so I was like, this will just be like a one-off thing for me, and I can't get a drummer to play, so I'll program some drums, and like that was kind of how I went about that. And then when we got back together, I was just like tinkering with one of the ideas at practice, and somebody's like, "That's really cool." And so I showed them the album, and they're like, "Yeah, we should do these songs, even if it's slightly different than our other stuff." But yeah, like I'm always writing. Yeah, I feel like ideas come relatively easy, and then I always appreciate and enjoy what the others do with that, which can wildly change what I expected, or sometimes I'll be like, you're veering a little too far away from kind of where my vision was for this.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Well,
yeah.
we were talking when we played that show last year or whatever. There, like, I'm not sure that I came across this album when I was going through your Bandcamp before we were, chatting and stuff, like in preparation for this. But there was an album that was like more or less instrumental that was like drastically different. Did you like move that, or did I just not see it? Like,
Um,
I'm getting at basically like you're not afraid to just like do something that's like this doesn't sound like our other stuff.
yeah, I think I always make the joke that like I don't have the ability to write the same song 22 times, like,
Uh huh.
um, but I also think there's like so much music that musicians I love are willing to take risks and go in really different ways. And I feel like I oftentimes in a local scene, people would be like, if you want people to like you, which you gotta like be consistent and predictable. And I'm like, well, like, I don't know, like David Bowie was all over the frickin' place and people love him. Like,
Mm-hmm.
not that I'm David Bowie, I'm not, but like, I think it's interesting to go different ways. And I think I've said it in some of our social media things too, but like, I really see our music, like, I'm just trying to talk about my experience as a human, right?
Mm-hmm.
Musically, and when I'm the person writing lyrics. And like as a human, we experience a lot of things. We experience days that are joyous and days that are torturous and days that are, things that are horrible and things that are amazing. And so like I kind of want music to capture that too, right? Like I don't always feel the same. I don't always look at things the same. I don't always listen to the same thing. And so yeah, I love for it to go in different ways, even if that ultimately doesn't get me a huge fan base. But I'm not going to get a huge fan base off of making noisy, screamy music anyway. So
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know. I think it's just like, yeah, it's, the call for like consistency and everything like that. That's such a, I don't know. That feels like such a new thing, like,
Yeah.
and I don't know when this happened. You know what I mean? Because Nirvana is like that is, one of the biggest bands ever, and there's nothing consistent about it, like other than it's
Right.
good, you know. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sure that I mean, there's plenty of bands that you could point to that are, like more consistent or whatever. But I don't know. Like I'm always like I'm always pretty much gonna be like this is the one where people like decide they hate the music that I make forever now because like I just did this weird, I just put this weird way or whatever, and like I was like that with our newest album, and the few people that have heard it like are have responded so positively. I was like that with the art for the album, and the people that saw it were like whatever, and I was like, no, this art is legitimately like so like the concept to me was so strange that I was when we were recording the album, I was like, I don't know if I should do this, but the more that I think I don't know if I should do this, then I should do it. And
Absolutely.
and I did it. And it's like people are going to see that and be like, what was the dilemma? This is just, but it's like, I don't know, as a screamo band, like when you just don't have an all black cover with like a skull on it and like lots of like, this looks like it was made on a Xerox machine. Like, you know what I mean? It's like
Yep.
you're doing something that's like, I don't know, like this isn't this isn't the right like look for this kind of thing or something. And
Sure.
I don't
Sure.
know, as of us chatting, the album is still not out, but by the time this airs, like people are going to be listening to me talk like, what the fuck, like, just it's fine, it's cool, or it sucks just like all your rest of your stuff, so whatever. But you're
I
not
can't wait to
listening
hear
to
that.
this if you think all my stuff sucks. So, or maybe you are. Maybe you just like hate listening. Just you're seething. We're an hour into this conversation, and you just like you're there's tears in your eyes. You hate me so much, but we can only hope. But yeah, the new album is Realities Disguised as Symbols. It's 13 songs, and it's like these aren't like short songs. It's a
Yeah.
full like album experience. It's like something I feel like when you walk away from it, you like there's so much interplay with the guitars, the bass, the drums, the different vocals. Like there's so much interplay happening that like there's no I don't think there's a way that you listen to this and you don't go away with like an idea where you're like, I'm gonna kind of steal that, but like different, you know? Um, it's just so interesting the way everything plays with one another. But like,
Thank you.
other than just like to compliment it, I was also like, this is going to be on vinyl, right? How did you get like what did you have to cut songs or like it's too long,
So
right?
yeah.
Or were they
So
just like
so for the vinyl, we took out all of the like the atmospheric transitions that happen on the digital version.
okay.
We took that out because that alone was just a few minutes of sound on there. And then we cut the two instrumental songs that are about 2 minutes each.
Okay.
Um, but it's still a pretty long album, so it's probably a little bit quieter than some other albums. That's just what happens
Cuz you're
when,
pushing like 20 minutes aside, right? Or
or well beyond 20 minutes
oh,
aside.
okay.
Yeah.
So but no one told you like, look, you're doing this at your own risk because that's what they told me at like barely over 20.
Yeah. So the last two albums both were well over that. I think this one's probably like 24, 25 minutes per side. which they can do. And if you go back to the 70s, like there's records that they put out that have like
Oh, for sure.
like, so essentially like what I've been told, well, every time we've done it is they're like, look, the longer you make it, the more bass I'm going to have to cut from it, the more low end is going to get cut, and the quieter the overall album is going to get. And there's a point where you get so quiet that you start hearing more of the vinyl noise.
Okay.
So the guy that mastered and pressed this one, he was like, there's no way you're putting your whole album. Like, we're not putting 28 minutes per side. It's too much. But they can get away with 25 and still get you a good quality record. He pre-prints on 180 gram vinyl, so that helps. You just get the thicker vinyl.
Yeah.
So you can do it. But yeah, they love it when you stay 20 to 22 minutes. That's the sweet spot for the vinyl guys. But I just really like, the world of music these days would tell you that you need to like be putting out singles, because that's how you get people to listen to your music on Spotify. But like, I don't know, maybe I'm old. I am old, but I also think there was like a beauty in an album, in presenting a record. There's an Ani DeFranco song where she talks about like a record used to be a record of an event, and it is that, like I want to say more than one thing. And so I love records. I still love records. I still listen to the artists I like. I listen to their albums that they put out more than if they drop a single. I'd probably listen to that once or twice and then kind of forget about it. But if they put out an album, I listen to an album.
Yeah. I mean, I think that y'all did the lead up to the album. I think y'all did all of that really well, as far as like you were like introducing the album, but it was never like it didn't feel the same way as like sometimes it's like this is a single and it's like, when's the album coming out? And that's like half a year from now or something. You know what I mean? Sometimes it can, just like you said, you hear it and then you like forget about it. And then later you're on the album and you're like, have I heard this before? And then you finally realize, oh, this is that single,
Right.
But that's, that's also understandable. That's the world we live in now, because things take forever and things are expensive and there's ways to, do these things or not do them. In my case, just be like, it's coming out Thursday. Here it is. But anyway, it's been great chatting with you, and I hope people have either already listened to the record or they go and listen to it now. Do you have anything else that you wanted to chat about before we take off? Are there any shows coming up that you'd like to plug? Like, I know you.
Well, we just wrapped.
Yeah, you just wrapped that.
Up the album release tour. So our next show is not until July 25th. We're going over and playing Newport, Kentucky, at the South something Revival. It's the folks that put on the Midwest Friends Festival are also doing a series of shows, and so we're going to go over and play that. And then we have a show in August in Madison. But yeah, I think the album's out, and we were really excited about that. And while we wanted to play more shows, it's also like we want to write some new material. So I think at the moment we're just like, it's time to get some new songs written. We've hammered these ones out, and so that's sort of where we're at. But I want to thank you for having me on. I want to thank you for collaborating with us on the release of this. That's been really great and special. You've put out so many of my favorite albums over the years that it's really cool to be in that same company. So thank you.
And that was my conversation with Shawn Bass. Thank you so much, Shawn, for taking the time to chat with me. Definitely go check out Realities Disguised as Symbols wherever you listen to music. Thanks also to all of y'all for listening along wherever you are. I hope you're having a great one. And until next time, take care and do good things.